Okay, so I thought that maybe today, before we begin with the prayers, we could visualize the Buddha. Since we are now in this class looking at practices that involve visualization, I thought it might be nice to practice that skill. So let's begin by sitting quietly, comfortably. Sit in a comfortable position. So let your body relax as much as possible. Let go of tension in your body. You can imagine it melting and flowing away, sinking into the earth or disappearing in space. And let your mind relax. Let go of or put aside any thoughts not related to what we're doing here. Thoughts of things that happened earlier today or yesterday or any other time in the past. Thoughts about the future, plans or worries, fantasies. Let go of those. And let yourself just be right here in the present moment and present place. You can watch your breath flowing in and out for a few minutes to settle down your mind in the present, the here and now. And so now I will describe the visualization of the Buddha. Just do the best you can to visualize. So imagine that the Buddha is in the space in front of you at about the level of your forehead and 1 or 2 meters away. And his body is made of golden light, and all the other parts of the visualization are also made of light. So they're transparent, not solid, just like pure light, a bit like when we see a rainbow in the sky. It appears very bright and clear, vivid, but we know it's not solid. We could put our hand right through it. So the Buddha is sitting on a seat consisting of three things: a lotus with the petals spread out flat, and on top of that, two discs of light, flat, representing the sun and the moon. So those three things represent the three principal aspects of the path. The lotus, renunciation; the sun, the wisdom realizing emptiness; and the moon, bodhicitta. And those in turn are on top of a throne which is made of gold and decorated with precious jewels and supported by snow lions, two at each corner, holding up the throne. The snow lions are manifestations of bodhisattvas. But again, don't worry if it's hard to visualize all the details. Just try to get a rough idea of the Buddha there in space in front of you. And so the Buddha is sitting on top of all of this. His legs are crossed in the full lotus position. And he's wearing the saffron-colored robes of a monk. His right hand is on his right knee with a palm over the knee and the fingers pointing downwards, touching the seat beneath him. And his left hand is in his lap with a palm facing upwards, holding a bowl, an alms bowl filled with medicinal healing nectar. Nectar that cures our suffering, our delusions. His face is peaceful, smiling. It has an expression of pure, unconditional love and compassion for every living being. So in the Buddha's mind, there's not the slightest bit of any negative thought: anger, hatred, irritation, judgmentalness. None of those. Instead, only love and compassion for each and every living being throughout the universe, without leaving anybody out. And he's also completely dedicated to helping each and every one of us, every living being, for however long it takes until all of us have reached his state, the state of enlightenment. So it's like he's going to be there for us forever, always ready to help us, guide us, take care of us. So do the best you can to have this visualization as clearly as you can in your mind, in your mind's eye. But don't worry if it doesn't appear clearly, or if it comes in and out of appearance. It's there and then it disappears, or it's only a partial appearance. So don't worry about that. Just do your best and be content with what you're able to do. Try at least to feel that the Buddha is there in front of you. That you are sitting in the presence of one who has totally transformed himself, his mind, freed his mind from everything that's negative, painful, deluded, mistaken. So all negative things have been totally purified. And all the positive states of mind have been fully developed and perfected so that they're there all the time. So before we recite the prayer of refuge and bodhicitta, let's just think about the meaning of that. So there are 3 levels of taking refuge. The first is out of a sense of dread about the possibility of an unfortunate rebirth in the next life. After we die, going to a bad place where we'd have a lot of suffering. So it's definite we don't want that to happen. But it's not something we have control or choice over. It's up to our karma and up to the state of mind that we have at the time of death. So it's said that taking refuge in the Buddha, in the 3 jewels, helps us avoid an unfortunate rebirth in the next life. Especially at the moment of death. If we can remember the Buddha and take refuge in the Buddha, then we won't go to a bad rebirth, we'll go to a good rebirth instead. So that's one reason for taking refuge. See if you can generate that feeling, that state of mind. Taking refuge in the Buddha can also help us deal with difficulties we face during our life. Sometimes we feel overwhelmed by problems and in need of help. So we can always think of the Buddha. Turn to the Buddha. Feel that the Buddha is there with us, helping us, giving us strength and courage to be able to get through this difficulty. And the second level of taking refuge is with regard to getting out of samsara. Realizing that even if we have a good rebirth in our next life, we're still in samsara. Being in samsara is imperfect, faulty, full of problems and difficulties. It's like being in prison. So if one understands that and wishes to be free of samsara altogether and not have to die and be reborn ever again, that's another reason for taking refuge in the Buddha. Because the Buddha knows the way to get out of samsara. He did it himself. He found a way out. So if we rely on him and his teachings, then we too can be free of samsara. Not have to die, take rebirth, and experience all the problems of samsara again and again. So if that makes sense to you, you can think of that as another reason for taking refuge in the Buddha. And then the third level of taking refuge is Mahayana refuge. And this is based on the last one, where we understand that samsara is a bad place to be and we want to get out of it. But then we extend that same awareness to everybody else. We realize all the other sentient beings who are in samsara are also suffering and wish to be free of suffering. And we wish them to be free of suffering, and we want to help them to do so. And it is possible to do that if we follow in the Buddha's footsteps and reach the same state that he did, the state of Buddhahood, full enlightenment. Then we will have all the abilities, the qualities, everything we need to be able to help all other living beings. Help them get out of samsara and help them reach liberation and enlightenment. So if that feels comfortable for you, you're able to relate to it, then you can think of that as another reason for taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So this third level of refuge is taking refuge on behalf of all living beings. Not just oneself, not just me alone, but everyone else. Taking refuge because we want to help all living beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. Help them all reach a state of peace, happiness, liberation, enlightenment. Okay, so then let's recite the prayer of refuge and bodhicitta on page 28.